מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא יחסר, בינו דשא ירביצני, עמי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא יירא רע, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי, תשענת בשם ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in the green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevarach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. We're all gathered here today to express our deep abiding love, to honor and to say goodbye to our precious, beloved Vivian, who was taken from us this past week at the full age of 101. She lived an extraordinary life, a long life, and though that life had its challenges and the last years were particularly difficult, the majority of those years overwhelmingly were filled with great blessing. Blessing of this extraordinary family, this family for whom Vivian lived. You were the center of her life, the apple of her eye. You were the greatest source of her joy. On you she lavished her love and her attention and her care and her pride. And our hearts go out to all of you on this day. We pray that God should send you comfort and strength, and that her memory should be healing. To you, Noreen and Barry, to you, Sharon, who were such loving daughters. To the loving grandchildren, Bradley and Marcy, Brian and Beth, Lisa and David, David and Jennifer, Deborah and Josh. To the great-grandchildren, Josh and Emma and Emily and Sam and Abby and Jacob and James and George, Amanda and Henry. To all of you We send our prayers and our love. We send you strength. And we hope that you will always carry Vivian, Grandma Viv, Gigi in your hearts. We pray that God will watch over her soul and will grant her great blessing and reward for all the goodness and the love that she shared in this world. We know that she's now with Joe, back together again. Someone asked me last night if I believed that was really true, and I said then, and I'll say it now, I do. It is the traditional Jewish belief that when we die, our loved ones come to meet us, and they escort us to heaven. And I'm quite sure that she's now with her beloved Joe, with her parents, with her siblings, and that they are rejoicing in being together again as they look down on all of you and the entire family. Vivian had a good and a long life. She grew up in the Skolva area first and then in the Kinsman area. She was born the fifth of 6 children, 3 girls and 3 boys. She was absolutely beautiful as a child and as a young woman. Everyone who knew her then said about her in her youth, as they did her whole life, that she was beautiful and stylish. She was known to be the prettiest woman in Kinsman. And the family shared with me that you have one picture of her in her younger days where she looks a lot like Vivian Lee. Her father, Philip, was a tailor. But at one point he became ill and was not able to work, and so her mother worked to support the family. And she was quite industrious. She had a candy store. She rented out property. She sold schnapps. She wheeled and dealed. And in that sense, she was way ahead of her time as a businesswoman engaged with the outside world, supporting the family. And perhaps that's part of where Vivian got that feisty spirit that is such a part of her, that we all know and love. She graduated from John Jay High School, and she went to work at Postal, which was like Western Union. But that job didn't last too long because then Joe came into her life. Joe really liked Vivian, but he was too shy to ask her out. And so he had his friend ask her to go out with him, that is, to go out with Joe. And they must have been very in love from the very beginning, because they did not date very long before Joe asked for her hand in marriage. And they were wed on September 15th, 1940 by Rabbi Armin Cohen at the Old Heights Jewish Center. They had a beautiful relationship. Joe was a very strong man. He was used to having things his way. Vivian was the softer of the two. But they fit together just perfectly, and they loved each other so deeply. And they enjoyed being together. And together they shared 71 years of marriage. 71 years, that's a lifetime, in which they shouldered life's burdens and shared in life's blessings together and built this extraordinary family, this legacy of love. And then Joe passed away just before the 72nd wedding anniversary. I remember when he passed. And I remember how hard that was for Vivian. What a terrible loss. Like she had lost a piece of herself. and she was lost without him. Their love was a very deep and true love. After they were married, they moved in with Vivian's parents. They lived there in Noreen when you were born. And then Joe went off to war to serve in Germany and France, returning in 1944. And while he was away, they wrote regularly to each other. And Joe even sent a recording back to you, Noreen. After the war, when he returned, the family moved into a house on Palmerston and Shaker Heights. And Sharon, that's where you were born. Vivian was not only very beautiful, she was also really nice. She had such a good heart. And she was extremely social. She loved to be with people. And she loved to talk with people. She had many girlfriends. And they all loved her, as everybody did. She loved to talk to anybody, no matter where she was. She would strike up conversations with complete strangers, whether she was waiting for the rapid or a waiter or waitress in a restaurant, or the employees and staff at Three Village, at the company picnics for Joe's company. She talked with everybody who was there. Everybody knew her and liked her. No, they loved her. And they always asked about her because she held a special place in their hearts. Because she made a point of connecting with them. You know, it's such a simple thing. Sometimes we don't do it often enough. It's so easy to walk by somebody and be preoccupied. She never was. If there was someone there, she drew them into her circle. The same was true when the family would go on trips. She would talk to everybody on those trips as well. And she loved to tour and explore. Sometimes Joe would become impatient with her because he'd want to move on. But she would take her time with the family to tour and to see. And Vivian was also very talented. She was extraordinary seamstress. She would take lessons in clothes making at Higbee's. And she made beautiful suits and coats. And then later in life she started crocheting and she made blankets for all the grandchildren. And then aprons that she handed out to everybody. And also potholders. Vivian was also a real athlete. She was very active. And she took care of herself and kept herself in shape and participated in many athletic activities. In junior high school, she proudly told the family she was gym leader. She was an avid tennis player her whole life. In later years, she took up golf. She often played with her beloved Joe and with members of the family. They belonged to Hawthorne Country Club since the 1960s. And I think, Brian, you said she tried to teach you golf. And you shared how you were in awe because she would play golf with only one club. It was a 7-wood. Only one. But she would always hit the ball straight. It would always go exactly where it needed to go. And your balls would fly off to the right, to the left, into the trees. But wow, what she could do with that perfect magic 7-wood. She also loved to play bridge and cards in general. And she taught many of you how to play casino. So many extraordinary memories. Memories that are shared through generations, which is such a beautiful thing. You, Sharon and Noreen, But also your children have similar memories of trips to Higbee's, to the Frosty Freeze, up to the Silver Grill. Sharon, you shared how you would go downtown with your mom on the Rapid and eat lunch in Mill's cafeteria and then go shopping at Higbee's. And Noreen, you shared a beautiful memory of your mom taking you to the Vogue Room, do I have the name right? For lunch and a singer. Very special outing. Your mom was always very involved in your lives, and she always took an active interest in you, except when you didn't want her to. And then she gave you the space that you needed to. That's a great balancing act for a mom to do. And Noreen and Sharon, in some ways, you had slightly different experiences growing up. Noreen, you grew up in your early years in your mom's parents' home and your grandparents' home. And your mother and your grandmother were extremely close with each other. And so she was always present as well. It was like you had two sets of parents. And you had two mothers. And she was so kind, your mom, and so loving and there for whatever you needed. And Sharon, you had this beautiful relationship with your mom that started in Palmerston, where you were born, evolved over the years, and became a very deep relationship, especially after your father passed away. Grandma Viv, Gigi, was a great and wonderful, loving grandmother who found such pride and such joy in all of you, her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She reveled in you. She loved taking you out to lunch. She loved telling you her jokes. They were horrible jokes. They weren't really such great jokes. But she would laugh at those jokes. In fact, she would break into laughter before she finished the joke. She couldn't stop laughing at her own jokes. And if Joe told a joke, she would laugh before he reached the punchline. And that laugh rings through the whole family. Everyone in every generation of this family has beautiful memories of that laugh and can still hear it in their ears, in their minds, in their hearts. It was a special laugh, a kind of a cute giggle. And she was always laughing. And she was always loving to tell jokes and to hear jokes. And she liked to feel happy. And David shared with me that they had kind of a little secret thing going on. They would sit at the country club over lunch, and they would whisper to each other, sometimes kind of off-color jokes. But it was kind of their special thing, and they would laugh together. There are so many wonderful memories of times you all shared together. Trips downtown and to all the museums. She exposed you to a lot of learning and a lot of culture, made you think and appreciate the arts. She loved to travel with all of you. And they traveled to Europe and they traveled to many spas, but one place that kept coming up again and again as we talked last night and also as I talked with other family members after was that Safety Harbor spot in Clearwater. A very special, magical place that you all remember being together. Your grandmother and grandfather took many of you to Europe, to London and Zurich and Evian and more. She pampered you. And you all have different but very similar memories of her. of being brought to and picked up at the JCC, of Joe and Vivian visiting New York, summers, Brian, that you saw him when you stayed with your dad, trips to Stouffer's restaurants, and to the delis, all three of them, Jack's, Corky's, and Sam's. Gotta get them all in. And their favorite place, Bob Evans. They loved Bob Evans. And Vivian would buy all the tchotchkes that they sold there to bring home to the kids, to the grandkids, the great-grandkids. And they also loved going with you all to Giovanni's, where Vivian loved the tiramisu. When you would visit, she always had rice pudding or mandel bread. The rice pudding was sweet, but you could feel the texture of the rice grains. The mandel bread, you said, was so hard it broke your teeth. But she always made you take some of it home with you. She loved bread a lot, but in later years, went on the Pritikin diet, and Brian, you shared, the two of you had a deal. She ate the crust, you ate the inside. David, you shared also some of your memories, and you said too that it was like being picked up and dropped off at the JCC. What was significant to you was that she took you all the time, your grandmother and your grandfather, to and from school and hockey, that they were like a second set of parents. And Lisa, you also expressed that. Your memories of them taking you to the school bus at Hawken Middle School, where you picked up the shuttle to the upper school. They were running a transportation company. They had a lot of grandchildren to move around, and they got them from place to place. I'm sure that was a great help and aid and relief to your parents. But they did it not only to help your parents, whom they loved, but because they cherished being with all of you and having that time together and what that meant to them. And sometimes those moments, driving in the car, because they were again and again all week long, over and over again, intertwined into the fabric of your lives, an intimate time to be able to talk or just enjoy each other's presence. Sometimes those moments are even more precious than the trips and the outings, because it was just about you all being together. And that is especially significant and meaningful. Great-Grandma Vivi, Gigi, treasured most of all her great-grandchildren. And what a gift it is to live to see so many great-grandchildren. Really extraordinary. And David, you expressed how much it meant to you that she had the chance to meet James, although she was already suffering from loss of vision from macular degeneration, but she got to be with him. And that was a great gift. And she had that same deep love for each of the great-grandchildren. Emma and Josh, she would take you into the closet and give you gifts when she would see you. Stuffed animals or other toys. She always gave them both the same gift, so one shouldn't be jealous of the other. And as she did, I know, for many of the other great-grandchildren. And Emma, speaking on behalf of many of the great-grandchildren, shared that one of the most special things was that Grandma Vivi, Gigi, would show lots of family pictures and told lots of stories about when she was younger. And those were the best things of all. You all love those stories, and that's ultimately what will stay with you most. As a great-grandmother, Vivian was kind and giving and happy. She found joy in being with each of you, and she gave you so much joy. Maybe Abby said it best. She said, "She always made me feel important." Josh shared with me, and I know he's not able to be here physically today, but he's watching the stream, so he is with us, sharing and honoring his great-grandmother. He said his first memories of his great-grandmother are that she was so loyal and loving to his great-grandfather. But from his youngest age, that stuck with him and made an impression. And once after the dementia had already set in, he was with Vivian when she turned to Josh and asked him about his golf. And it made him feel really good that despite the dementia, she was able to remember not only who he was, but something that he cared about. And towards the end, Josh shared that when he would come into town to visit, he always made a point of going to see his great-grandma Vivi. And he would sit down next to her and he would take her hand and hold it and just sit there with her for 15 or 20 minutes. At this point, she was not able to respond at all. There was no conversation. There was no feedback from her recognizing that he was there. It didn't matter. He wanted to be by her side. He told me he felt that he had to do it because she was such an important part of his life, and that he wanted her to know that he was with her. Vivian, as I said before, faced a number of health challenges in her life, including a fight with cancer and macular degeneration and dementia. When the macular degeneration started, Vivian could not drive anymore. And Sharon, you took her everywhere. And the two of you grew even closer and formed a special bond. And you did everything together. And when your father passed away, you continued to take her everywhere and to watch over her. She was like a mother, a sister, and a friend to you. Vivian also had a very special relationship with her sister Pauline. Pauline had 2 children, and the daughter was close in age to Vivian, and they had a very special relationship, almost like sisters. And that daughter, that daughter of Pauline, Helen, made Aliyah. The family met her when Brian became bar mitzvah in Israel, and often you would send toys and clothes to them. And Helen is sitting Shiva in Israel this week for Vivian. Vivian grew up in a traditional household, and Judaism was a central part of her life and very important to her, and she was a very proud Jew. She kept a kosher home for many years. She made holiday celebrations a fixture of the family. She always brought the grandchildren and great-grandchildren Judaica, Shabbat candles, candlesticks, Hanukkah candles. She and her beloved Joe and the family took many trips to Israel and were strong, ardent Zionists, lovers of the Jewish state. They donated forests and reservoirs to the Jewish National Fund, and Vivian very much wanted to donate an ambulance in Israel, because when Sharon was in Israel, she had had food poisoning, and Magen David Adom had helped her in that difficult time. And ultimately, the family did donate an ambulance to Israel as well. Vivian loved synagogue. It was a really big and very important part of her life. She loved B'nai Yeshurun. It was very much a home. She and Joe had a special relationship with Rabbi Schachter and Livsa, Rabbi Emeritus and his wife. And I enjoyed many years knowing Vivian and the family. One of the great gifts for me in being rabbi in this congregation, and I know it has been for Rabbi Hallam, for the cantor as well, has been our friendships with all of you. The gift of seeing and being inspired by the great love and care and compassion and joy that fills the homes that comprise this great legacy of Vivian and Joe's. Vivian loved to daven at B'nai Yeshurun. On the holidays, they had fourth row seats, and she was there every Shabbat davening until her eyesight made it too difficult. Always in synagogue. She also loved studying Hebrew with Mrs. Melberg, one of the legendary Hebrew teachers in our congregation. And she convinced Joe to be philanthropic to the synagogue, provide monies to support the work in the synagogue and its endeavors, and to help it remain strong and vibrant. And as a congregation, we are very grateful for the wonderful and beautiful support that the family has provided. It's an expression of the deep values that Vivian held and that she passed on to each of you. And I forgot to mention, so I have to squeeze it in, though it's out of place. The other thing that you all talked about that was such a part of Vivian was those wonderful little toys that she brought home from Bob Evans and McDonald's and other places, and she had them displayed in her home, like in a case. So many wonderful memories, so much love. But above all, I think about Vivian's laughter, because she gave all of you that sense of an ability to find joy in every moment and every day, in your family, in your friends, in your community. And I hope that you always feel that joy. And every time you feel that joy, that you know that it's Vivian's light and spirit inside of you. The family asked me to offer thanks for the beautiful caregivers who gave such loving attention to Vivian. And most especially for Mariana, the doctor who watched over her for more than 20 years. More than a doctor, she was a friend to Vivian and the family. Vivian was the epitome of a lady. Beautiful, always stylish, always sharp. She was feisty, had an independent spirit, but she was so kind and loving. She was such a people person who found such joy in connecting to others. She was so generous and giving, so warm and thoughtful, and so joyful. This past Sunday, you all had the opportunity to gather around her, to be with her, to say goodbye. That was a great gift that you gave to her. And I hope a great gift for you as well. But though you said goodbye, she's not gone. Not at all. Our tradition teaches that Though the body dies, the soul lives on eternally, bound to its Creator. And that soul, as part of God's soul, infuses all of creation and fills our souls and our hearts. So she is here in the world around you and within you, watching over you from above, inspiring you from inside your heart. May you always feel that presence. May you always be comforted by it and inspired by it and guided by it, so that you will live up to the great lessons, the legacy that she leaves you, and that she will live on through you. May her memory be for a blessing. And we say together, Amen. We'll rise now for the memorial prayer.
En male rachamim shochem bameromim ametzei menucha nechona tachar kanfei hashechina b'malor kadoshim tehorim kezohar harakia mazirim et nishmat Vivian Koppelman 5 of Ayata Sharcha Le'olama Began Eden Tehei Menuchata Ahana Bala Rachamim Hastirea Besedek Nafecha Le'olamim Utzeror v'tzeror achayim v'nishmatam Adonai unachalata v'tanuach v'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, we pray that you grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of our beloved Vivian who has gone to her eternal home. O merciful one, we ask that she find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May the Lord be her portion. May she rest in peace. And we say it together, Amen. Interment will follow at Chesterland Cemetery, after which the family will receive a visitation at 3 Village, 5153 Village Lane, in the reception room. There will be valet parking, and then when you enter, the reception room is on the TL level, on the lower level. There will be visitation today following services and interment until 5 p.m. and then again from 7 to 9 p.m. and tomorrow from 2 to 5 p.m. and 7 to 9 p.m. Friends who wish may contribute to the Jewish Community Federation of Cleveland or the UH Harrington Heart Institute on Euclid Avenue in Cleveland.